Okay, let's dive right into this explainer where we are going to break down what is essentially a 3 a.m. psychological thriller. Julius Caesar, Act 2, Scene 1. Seriously, if you're a fan of high-stakes tension and deep character studies, you are absolutely gonna love this. We're gonna strip away all that complex Elizabethan English and look straight into the mind of a man who is literally tearing himself apart from the inside out. So, what makes a good man decide to murder a king? It's a heavy question, right? And it totally sets the stage for our entire exploration into Brutus's agonizing internal dilemma. See, this isn't some classic story of a villain rubbing his hands together in the shadows. No, this is about the agonizing choice to betray a dear friend just to save a nation. Brutus is widely considered this noble, incredibly honorable Roman, and yet, here he is, standing on the precipice of committing a brutal assassination. How does a rational mind even begin to justify that leap? Well, let's take a look. Section 1. Brutus's internal conflict. Picture this. It's the dead of night. The storm is raging so darkly that his servant can't even read the stars to tell the time, and Brutus is just pacing his orchard, desperately trying to rationalize the unthinkable. Now, his main fear isn't who Caesar is today. He is absolutely terrified of what power might turn Caesar into tomorrow. He knows power can completely change a person's nature. It's kind of like the stark contrast between modern leaders, right? On one hand, you have individuals who use their massive wealth for charity and the public good. The source material uses the example of Writ and Tata here. But then, on the other hand, you have those who strip away all compassion and just run off with the money out of sheer greed, like the infamous case of Vijay Mallya. Brutus knows that once compassion is separated from immense power, the result is guaranteed tyranny. And this brings us to an absolutely incredible metaphor. Brutus notes that it's actually the bright, sunny days that bring out venomous snakes from their hiding spots. They thrive in the sun. Right now, Caesar is having his bright day, meaning he's loved, he's successful, he's powerful. Because of this, Brutus decides that Caesar must be viewed as a serpent's egg. You wouldn't wait for a venomous snake to hatch before you defended yourself, would you? Of course not. You have to crush the egg in the shell before it hatches into an uncontrollable tyrant. Section 2. The manipulative letter. So, under the cover of night, Brutus's servant finds this mysterious sealed paper by the window. And guess what? It was planted there by the master manipulator himself, Cassius. Just look at how this letter is crafted. It is literal genius. It deliberately uses incomplete sentences. It says things like, shall Rome, etc., and just leaves it hanging. Cassius knows exactly what he's doing here. By forcing Brutus to fill in the blanks, he masterfully triggers him into this massive spiral of overthinking and self-importance. Brutus reads that incomplete sentence, and his own anxiety fills in the rest, creating these nightmare scenarios of Rome falling to a monarch. It essentially pushes him into feeling a huge personal responsibility to act. To really grasp the psychological torture Brutus is going through right now, think about an automatic habit. Something like brushing your teeth. You do it unconsciously, without a second thought. Now, compare that to the agonizing stress of making a massive, life-altering career choice. That gap between intention and action is pure agony. Brutus actually complains that his mind is trapped in a brutal civil war between his unconscious dread of the murder and his conscious, rationalized choice that the murder simply has to happen. He's literally a kingdom suffering an insurrection within his own mind. Section 3. The conspirators assemble. Okay, the tension spikes massively here because the midnight visitors have finally arrived at the gate, coming in like a literal nightmare. Let's look at the roster. We've got Cassius, Casca, Decius, Cinna, Metellus, and Trebonius. These men sneak in with their hats pulled down low and half their faces completely buried in their cloaks. Even Brutus, who has just convinced himself that this murder is a totally noble act for Rome, is struck by this. He reflects on how shameful their conspiracy must truly be if they are terrified to show their faces even in the pitch-black night. He wonders if they have to hide in the dark, where on earth will they find a cavern dark enough to hide their monstrous faces during the day? Right away, a crazy power dynamic establishes itself. Cassius, who, remember, started this whole plot, suggests they swear an oath to bind themselves together. But Brutus, he quickly rejects it. He basically says, do not stain the even virtue of our enterprise. For Brutus, oaths are for priests, cowards, and old feeble men who don't trust each other. He passionately argues that their sad faces, the suffering of their souls, and Rome's desperate times are honestly all the motivation true Roman freedom fighters need. They are doing a noble thing, taking some shady oath in the dark would just cheapen the whole shebang. Right after this, the group hits their first major strategic debate. Should they bring in Cicero? Now, Cicero is an elderly, silver-haired, highly respected senator. The conspirators figure that including him will make their violent act look like a wise, mature decision to the general public, basically buying them instant credibility. But again, Brutus shuts this down immediately. He insists that the proud Cicero will absolutely never join a plan he didn't invent himself. Notice what's happening here. Brutus is really showing his total dominance over the group. Cassius and the others immediately fold to Brutus's will. Brutus has essentially hijacked the conspiracy. He's the one calling the shots now. Section 4. Sacrificers, not butchers. The power dynamics just keep shifting as they hash out the actual logistics of the assassination. Cassius, who is incredibly pragmatic and shrewd, makes a very smart prediction. He says that Mark Antony, who is Caesar's fiercely loyal, young, and extremely well-connected ally, will be a massive threat. So Cassius suggests the logical move. They should just kill Antony right alongside Caesar to prevent any future revenge. But Brutus argues no, and his reasoning here literally alters the course of history. He insists that Antony is just a limb of Caesar, and if you cut off the head, the arm becomes totally useless. See, Brutus desperately wants to maintain the moral high ground. He insists they must look like noble surgeons curing Rome of a disease, not savage butchers hacking people to pieces. He just assumes Antony will go back to his partying and sports once Caesar is gone. And, well, spoiler alert, this will prove to be a catastrophic miscalculation. Now, they actually have to figure out how to get Caesar to the capital in the first place. Caesar has grown very superstitious lately, and with the crazy storm and all the bad omens, there's a real chance he might just stay home. But Decius steps up and explains exactly how he's going to get Caesar out of his house. He boasts that just as you can trap bears with mirrors or glasses and trap lions with nets, you can trap Caesar with flattery. Decius plans to tell Caesar how much he hates flatterers, which will, ironically, flatter Caesar immensely, making him completely blind to the trap. It's brilliantly manipulative. Section 5. Portia's powerful plea. Once the conspirators finally agree to meet at 8 a.m. and disperse, things take a really deeply emotional turn. Brutus's wife, Portia, enters the scene and she confronts him because she knows something is terribly, terribly wrong. She meticulously lists the physical symptoms of severe stress she's been observing in him, leaving meals abruptly, heavy, anxious sighing, avoiding eye contact, and pacing the floors in the freezing cold at night. When Brutus tries to just brush her off by claiming he's simply sick, she flat out refuses to buy it. She knows he's way too smart to wander around in the freezing night air if he were just physically ill. She literally drops to her knees in what is just an incredibly powerful moment, making a profound argument about marriage. She says that if he keeps his deepest secrets and burdens from her, she isn't his honorable wife at all. She argues that if she is only kept around for meals, to warm his bed, and for casual talk, well then she is merely his harlot, not his true partner. And this whole exchange brilliantly illustrates her immense inner strength. She reminds him of her noble lineage. She's the daughter of the highly respected Cato, and she's the woman Lord Brutus chose to marry. She is no ordinary woman. And then, to prove she possesses the stoic strength to carry his heavy secret, she reveals a voluntary stab wound she actually inflicted on her own thigh. She argues that if she can bear that immense physical pain without complaining, she can for sure bear her husband's secrets. Section 6. The final push. Just as Brutus is deeply moved and promises to tell her absolutely everything, boom, they're interrupted by a knock at the door. It's the sick Senator Ligarius. He arrives wearing a kerchief to cover his face because of his illness, but the second Brutus tells him there is an honorable exploit at hand, a real mission for Rome, Ligarius rips off his kerchief. He declares that Brutus is like an exorcist. Just as an exorcist magically cures a sick spirit, Brutus's call to action has instantly cured Ligarius's physical illness by giving his life a renewed honorable purpose. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we have to ask ourselves about this massive contradiction. Brutus decides to kill to cure Rome. He sacrifices his peace of mind, his moral purity, his marriage's harmony, and his closest friend, all to act as a noble surgeon for his nation. But does this noble intention even matter? In becoming a murderer to cure the state, does Brutus actually become the very disease he's trying to cure? Does he become the butcher he swore not to be? It's a huge question, and it completely sets the tragic stage for everything that follows. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning the narrative.